The news crackled with excitement. And the winners of the National Ice Cream Eating Contest are Leo Maxwell, Maya Sharma, Sam Peterson, Chloe Davies, and Ben Carter. 5 names, 5 golden spoons, and 5 invitations to a place most children only dreamed of, Ice Cream Island. Leo Maxwell, a whirlwind of energy and a bottomless stomach, practically vibrated with glee. Ice cream wasn't just a treat for Leo, it was a challenge. How many scoops could one person eat? He pictured mountains of chocolate fudge brownie, rivers of strawberry swirl, and a personal swimming pool filled with vanilla bean. He'd conquer them all. Maya Sharma, on the other hand, wasn't focused on eating the ice cream. She was thinking about collecting. Maya wasn't interested in enjoying a single scoop. She wanted every limited edition sprinkle, every rare candy topping, every uniquely flavored ice cream the island had to offer. Her room back home was already a carefully curated museum of sweets, and Ice Cream Island was about to become her greatest acquisition. Sam Peterson tapped his foot impatiently, already packing his bag. Finally, he muttered. He loved ice cream, sure, but he hated waiting. The thought of a whole island dedicated to his favorite treat was glorious, but the journey itself? That was the problem. He wanted to bet here, not travel there. He envisioned himself surrounded by frozen delights in mere minutes, and any delay felt like a personal affront. Chloe Davies, ever the performer, immediately announced her win to anyone who would listen. And those who wouldn't. Did you hear? I won. I, Chloe Davies, am going to Ice Cream Island. It's going to be amazing. I'm probably the best ice cream eater anyway. She spent the afternoon practicing her Island Queen wave for the inevitable crowds of admirers. And then there was Ben Carter. Ben loved ice cream, a simple, quiet love. But he mostly loved being alone with his thoughts. The thought of going to a new place, especially with strangers, filled him with a quiet dread. He clutched his golden spoon, a small, shining weight in his hand, and hoped he wouldn't say or do anything embarrassing. As the children prepared for their adventure, a small news report flickered on the television in the background. A somber-faced reporter spoke of unusual weather patterns. Reports are coming in from around the globe of instability in areas with high sugar content, candy forests wilting, chocolate rivers receding. Experts are baffled. The camera showed a slightly blurred image of a drooping lollipop tree. No one paid much attention, too caught up in the excitement of their golden tickets. But a subtle chill, colder than any ice cream, had begun to creep into the world. The ship, shaped like a giant ice cream cone, docked with a gentle thump against a pier made of solid rock candy. As the ramp lowered, a scent so overwhelmingly sweet it made their teeth ache washed over the 5 children. Ice Cream Island. It was real. Leo was the first one off, sprinting towards the nearest river of chocolate syrup. Yes, he yelled, diving in headfirst and splashing chocolate everywhere. This is the life. He began scooping the thick, dark liquid into his mouth with both hands, barely pausing for breath. Maya, eyes wide with wonder, didn't even glance at the chocolate river. Her gaze was fixed on the trees. Not ordinary trees, but towering waffle cones, each laden with different flavors of ice cream. Oh my goodness, she breathed, already mentally cataloging the rarest combinations. She pulled a small, velvet-lined bag from her backpack and began carefully plucking off jewel-toned candied cherries and shimmering sugar crystals, depositing them inside. Sam, after a brief moment of indecision, took off at a run, attempting to sample every flavor of ice cream on the nearest waffle cone tree. Gotta try them all. Gotta try them all. He chanted, his tongue darting out to catch drips. Chloe struck a pose, twirling in a circle amidst a shower of sprinkles that coated the ground. Magnificent. Absolutely magnificent. This island was made for me. She demanded that Ben take a picture, adjusting her angle dramatically. Ben, overwhelmed by the sheer scale of everything, simply stood at the edge of the pier, clutching his golden spoon. The vibrant colors, the intoxicating smells, the sheer abundance. It was a lot to take in. He cautiously took a step forward, crunching on a stray sprinkle. Suddenly, a small voice piped up. "Welcome to Ice Cream Island." They all turned to see a tiny gingerbread man, no taller than Ben's hand, standing before them. He wore a worried expression and his gumdrop buttons seemed to be trembling. This was Pip. "I'm Pip," he said, wringing his tiny hands. It's wonderful to have visitors, but," he trailed off, glancing nervously at the slightly drooping waffle cones in the distance. Leo, mid-scoop of chocolate, barely registered Pip's presence. MMMPH. Best chocolate ever. He continued to devour the syrup with gusto. Maya, carefully arranging her candy collection, barely glanced at Pip. "Excuse me," she said dismissively, "but do you know where I can find the rainbow swirl lollipops? I've heard they're exceptionally rare." Pip sighed. "Please," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Just, please be careful. And maybe don't take too much." His plea went unheard. Leo was building a chocolate fortress around himself, and Maya was already disappearing into a grove of peppermint trees, her bag growing heavier with each passing moment. Sam was still frantically taste-testing, and Chloe was busy admiring her reflection in a pool of melted caramel. Only Ben seemed to notice Pip's distress, his quiet eyes filled with concern. The sweetness, so overwhelming just hours before, now felt fragile. Leo, still happily immersed in a chocolate puddle, suddenly sputtered. "Hey!" he protested, wiping chocolate from his eyes. "This chocolate, it's getting watery. And less chocolatey." He looked around, noticing the river was significantly thinner than before. Maya emerged from the peppermint grove, her bag overflowing. She stopped short, her jaw dropping. "My candies," she gasped, pointing to a pile of glistening gumdrops that were rapidly losing their shape, becoming sticky puddles. "They're dissolving." Sam, having completed his whirlwind tour of the waffle cone trees, skidded to a halt. "What's happening?" he demanded, noticing that the once firm cones were now drooping sadly, their ice cream contents sliding down the sides. "This is taking too long to enjoy. It's supposed to be endless." Chloe, ever the dramatic one, fanned herself with a large sugar cookie. "Honestly, the humidity is simply dreadful. It's ruining everything." She glanced around, assessing the damage with a critical eye. "If he were in charge, I'd have this sorted in a jiffy. A strategically placed cooling spell, perhaps? Or a network of miniature fans." Ben, who had been quietly observing everything, noticed Pip trembling even more violently than before. He knelt down, his voice barely a whisper. "Pip? What's wrong?" Pip wrung his tiny hands. It's the magic," he stammered. "The guardian of sweetness. She's disappeared. She's the one who keeps the island balanced, who keeps everything sweet and stable. Without her, everything melts." "Melts?" Sam scoffed. "That's ridiculous. We just need to fix it." He darted off towards a pile of chocolate chip cookies, frantically gathering them up. "I'll build a dam. A cookie dam. That'll stop the chocolate river from thinning." He began stacking the cookies haphazardly, but the flimsy structure crumbled under the weight of the flowing chocolate within seconds. Chocolate chips flew everywhere, and Sam landed with a splash. "See? I told you," Leo complained, covered in chocolate and cookie crumbs. "Now there's even less chocolate." Chloe rolled her eyes. "Honestly, Sam, you're so impulsive. A cookie dam? Really? If you'd just listened to me." "Oh, here we go," Maya muttered, clutching her dissolving candies tighter. "Chloe thinks she knows everything." "I don't know everything," Chloe retorted. "I have a natural talent for organization and problem solving. I could run this island better than anyone. Maybe if you spent less time talking about how amazing you are and more time helping, we could actually do something." Sam snapped, still dripping with chocolate. Ben, watching the argument escalate, felt a pang of sadness. The island was falling apart, and they were all bickering. He gently touched Pip's arm. Is there anything we can do?" Pip looked up at Ben, his gumdrop eyes filled with desperation. "The Guardian left a riddle," he said, his voice trembling. "A clue to finding her. It's hidden in her cottage. It speaks of kindness, sharing and self-control. Those are the keys to restoring the island's magic. He paused, looking at the arguing children with a mixture of hope and despair. But if you can't work together, if you can't learn those virtues, then Ice Cream Island is doomed. Pip, with a determined wobble, led the way, his tiny legs moving as fast as they could. The children, momentarily silenced by the weight of Pip's words, followed him through a winding path of licorice vines and past towering gingerbread houses. They arrived at a quaint cottage, built entirely of frosted cookies and topped with a chimney of spun sugar. It looked abandoned. A thin layer of melting frosting coated the windows, and the usually cheerful door hung slightly ajar. This is where the Guardian lived? Maya asked, her voice uncharacteristically quiet. She instinctively reached for her bag of candies, then hesitated, noticing their continued deterioration. It is, Pip confirmed, his voice barely audible. She loved this little cottage. But she hasn't been here for days. The inside of the cottage was surprisingly tidy, though a palpable sense of sadness hung in the air. A half-finished game of Candyland sat on a table, and a book titled The Art of Sweetness lay open on a rocking chair. On the mantelpiece, nestled amongst peppermint sticks, was a small, intricately decorated box. The riddle! Pip exclaimed, scrambling onto a marshmallow stool to reach the box. He carefully opened it, revealing a rolled-up parchment tied with a ribbon of licorice. Chloe, pushing past the others, snatched the parchment. "Let me see. I'm excellent at riddles." She unrolled it and read aloud, her voice dripping with self-importance. "When hearts are kind and sweetness is shared, and cravings controlled, a burden is bared. To heal the land and magic restore, seek the mountains of gumdrops, and kindness explore." She frowned. Rather simplistic, really. It's clearly about being nice and not eating everything all at once. Sam rolled his eyes.
No kidding, Chloe.
We figured that much out already. Leo, distracted, was peering into a jar of brightly colored lollipops. Anyone want a lollipop? They seem to be holding up okay. Maya, still preoccupied with her dissolving collection, barely registered Leo's offer. Ben, who had been quietly observing, spoke up, his voice soft but clear. I think it means we need to show those virtues. Kindness, sharing, and self-control. And the Gumdrop Mountains, that's where we need to go next." Everyone stared at Ben, surprised. He rarely spoke up, and when he did, it was usually a whisper. "Well, that was surprisingly insightful, Ben," Chloe conceded, a hint of annoyance in her voice. "You're right, Ben." Pip chirped, beaming at him. "The Gumdrop Mountains it is. But, be warned. The Gumdrop Mountains are guarded by gummy bears. And they are very fond of tempting travelers with their deliciousness." As if on cue, a group of small, brightly colored gummy bears tumbled into the cottage, giggling and offering the children an array of sugary treats. "Try our gummy swirls," one chirped, holding out a shimmering red candy. "Or our chewy squares," another offered, waving a handful of green gummies. Leo's eyes lit up. Gummy bears. My favorite. He reached for a handful, but Maya quickly slapped his hand away. "Remember what Pip said," she reminded him, though she couldn't help but eye the gummies with a longing gaze. "We need self-control. We can't just indulge in everything we see." Sam, ever impatient, grumbled, "This is going to be harder than I thought." Chloe, however, was already formulating a plan. "I shall simply ignore their tempting offerings. It's a matter of willpower, you see." She turned her back on the gummy bears with a haughty sniff. Ben, avoiding eye contact with the tempting treats, quietly adjusted his backpack. He knew this journey wouldn't be easy, but he had a feeling that the Gumdrop Mountains held the key to saving Ice Cream Island. And for the first time, he felt a surge of confidence, a quiet determination to help. The journey to the Gumdrop Mountains was a sticky one. The path was paved with discarded licorice laces and dotted with half-eaten marshmallows. As they climbed, the landscape transformed into a vibrant, undulating terrain of colorful gumdrops, or what you said to be colorful. Many lay fractured and dull, scattered amongst the larger, intact formations. "Wow," breathed Ben, finally finding his voice amidst the spectacle. It's sad. Indeed, the air wasn't filled with the cheerful bounce one might expect from a mountain range made of candy.
Aquit melancholy hung over the place.
They soon discovered the source. Huddled amongst the larger gumdrops were small groups of broken pieces, chipped and cracked. Each fragment seemed to radiate a subtle sadness. Pip explained, hopping onto a relatively stable orange gumdrop. These are the gumdrop people. They're usually full of joy and bounce, but when the island's magic weakens, they fall apart. Can't we just glue them back together? Sam asked, ever the pragmatist, already rummaging in his backpack. It's not that simple, Pip replied. They need a special kind of sweetness to mend, a kindness-infused sugar.
And a gentle hand.
Leo groaned. Great. More work. I thought we were here to eat things, not fix them. He kicked at a loose pebble of sugar. Maya, however, was already assessing the situation, her eyes scanning her collection. I might have something that could help. I have some crystallized honey, and a few rare sugar sprinkles. They're really valuable though. She clutched her bag tighter.
Maya.
Chloe exclaimed. Don't be ridiculous. We need to help them. Sharing is part of the riddle, remember? I know, Maya mumbled, reluctantly opening her bag. It's just, these are special. As Maya hesitantly offered a sprinkle of shimmering, lavender sugar, a small, cracked gumdrop wobbled forward. Please, can you help me? Its voice was a tiny, sugary whisper. Leo, still grumbling, was assigned to hold the pieces together while Maya carefully applied the crystallized honey. It was slow work. The honey was sticky, the gumdrop fragments were fragile, and Leo's impatience was palpable. He kept sighing and glancing longingly at a nearby patch of perfectly intact cherry gumdrops. Suddenly, a vivid image flashed through Leo's mind. He saw the Guardian of Sweetness, years ago, patiently rebuilding a fallen gingerbread house after a strong windstorm. She wasn't doing it for praise or reward, she was simply doing it because it needed to be done. A warmth spread through Leo's chest, a feeling he hadn't experienced while mindlessly consuming sweets.
Flashback. The Guardian, a woman with eyes that sparkled like sugar crystals, carefully pieced together the shattered gingerbread walls, humming a cheerful tune.
A small child watching her offered a tiny candy heart. The Guardian smiled and placed it atop the roof as a finishing touch. Leo straightened up, his expression softening. He began to hold the gumdrop pieces with more care, focusing on the task at hand. Okay, he muttered, let's get this done right. Slowly, painstakingly, they began to repair the broken gumdrops. Sam, surprisingly, found a rhythm in gently smoothing the honey, his impatience replaced by focused concentration. Chloe, though still occasionally offering unsolicited advice, actually proved adept at holding the smaller fragments in place. Even Maya, after offering a generous portion of her rare sprinkles, seemed to find a quiet satisfaction in the act of helping. As each gumdrop was mended, a faint glow emanated from it, and a small chirp of happiness filled the air. Soon, the area around them was filled with revitalized gumdrop people, bouncing and giggling with renewed energy. The mountains, once shadowed by sadness, began to regain their vibrant hue. Thank you, a chorus of tiny voices echoed around them. Thank you for your kindness. Leo, covered in sticky honey and sprinkles, actually smiled. It wasn't so bad, he admitted, surprised by his own words. Actually, it felt good. The air grew thick and sweet as they approached the Chocolate River Rapids. The scent of dark milk and white chocolate swirled together, almost overwhelming. The river itself wasn't a gentle stream. It churned and bubbled, a frothy cascade of liquid chocolate rushing between banks of fudge brownies. A small, rather rickety raft constructed of oversized chocolate bars and marshmallow ropes awaited them. Right, said Pip, perched on the raft's bow. The next clue is hidden at the far end of the rapids, near the peppermint whirlpool. But be warned, these waters are spirited. Sam, predictably, was already attempting to push the raft into the current. Let's go. The faster we go, the faster we get the clue. Whoa, hold on. Chloe protested, grabbing the side. We need a plan. I should steer, obviously. I have the best sense of direction. No, wait, Ben spoke up, surprisingly firm. If we all just rush in, we'll probably crash. We need to paddle together and listen to each other. Listen to each other? Chloe scoffed. Honestly, Ben, with all due respect. Before she could finish, a ripple disturbed the chocolate surface. A head, a scaled, chocolate-covered head, rose from the depths. It was a chocolate dragon, no bigger than a large dog with playful golden eyes. It let out a puff of cocoa-scented smoke. Greetings, sweet travelers. The dragon chirped, its voice like bubbling chocolate. I am Coco, guardian of these rapids. To pass, you must prove your teamwork. I will test your coordination. If you fail, you'll have a very sticky landing. Coco proceeded to create small whirlpools and rogue waves, testing their ability to paddle in unison. Sam, initially ignoring everyone, paddled furiously on one side, causing the raft to spin wildly. Sam, stop! Maya shouted, struggling to keep her balance. You're making it worse. I'm trying to go fast. Sam retorted. We need to get to the clue. Fast isn't always best. Ben pointed out calmly. We need to paddle together. Let's count to 3, then paddle on the count. 1, 2, 3, paddle. Reluctantly, Sam joined in, and slowly, awkwardly, they began to synchronize their movements. Chloe, forced to relinquish control, found herself actually listening to Ben's instructions. Even Leo, who had been mostly silent, offered a surprisingly helpful suggestion about angling the paddles. As they worked together, the raft began to navigate the rapids with more grace. Coco, seemingly pleased, created a final, larger wave, testing their final coordination. 1, 2, 3, paddle. Ben called out, and with a collective surge of effort, they rode the wave, emerging unscathed on the other side. Coco chuckled, sinking back into the chocolate river. Well done. You have proven your ability to work as a team. The clue awaits. They disembarked near the peppermint whirlpool, a swirling vortex of pink and white chocolate. There, nestled amongst the peppermint swirls, was a small golden gumdrop with another riddle etched onto its surface. As Maya carefully retrieved the gumdrop, Leo found himself staring back at the churning rapids. He remembered hoarding the gumdrops in the mountains, the selfish desire to have more than anyone else. A pang of regret washed over him. He hadn't understood then that the joy wasn't in having the sweetness, but in sharing their experience. What's the riddle? Chloe asked, breaking his reverie. Maya read aloud, where trees wear cones of golden hue, and stillness holds a secret true. The waffle cone forest. Sam exclaimed, already scanning the horizon. Let's go. But this time, Sam didn't rush off on his own. He glanced at his friends, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. They were a team now, and he knew they'd face whatever challenges lay ahead together. The waffle cone forest was unlike anything they'd ever seen. Towering trees weren't made of wood and leaves, but of perfectly formed golden brown waffle cones, stacked high into the sky. The air hung heavy with the scent of vanilla and caramelized sugar. Every branch dripped with melted chocolate, and sprinkles dusted the ground like a glittering carpet. It was, quite simply, paradise for anyone with a sweet tooth. Wow, breathed Chloe, her usual boastfulness momentarily forgotten. It's incredible. Sam, predictably, started edging towards the nearest tree, his hand outstretched. I'm just going to sample one. For strength, you know. Sam, no. Ben said, surprisingly assertive. He stepped in front of Sam, blocking his path. Remember the clue? And stillness holds a secret true. We need to reach the heart of the forest, and I don't think we'll find it if we're all distracted by, well, this. Maya, who had been meticulously examining her collection of rare candies, paused. She looked at the overflowing pouch, then at the tempting cones. A strange feeling stirred within her, a sense of fullness. Not a physical fullness, but an emotional one. She realized she hadn't truly enjoyed any of her candies, too focused on acquiring more. "Ben's right," she said quietly, and to everyone's astonishment, she began to redistribute her candies amongst the others. "Here, Chloe, try this shimmering starfruit chew. Leo, you might like this chocolate chili caramel. It's surprisingly good." Leo, taken aback by the offer, cautiously accepted the caramel. It was delicious, and experiencing the shared enjoyment with Maya made it even sweeter. Thanks," he mumbled, a genuine smile crossing his face. As they ventured deeper, the forest presented a growing challenge. The cones became larger, more ornate, and even more tempting. Every step was a battle against their own desires. Sam fidgeted, Chloe constantly glanced longingly at the cones, and even Leo found his willpower tested. It was Ben, however, who surprised them all. He seemed to possess a quiet strength, a stillness that radiated outwards. He walked with a purpose, gently guiding them away from the most alluring treats, reminding them of their goal. "Focus on the path," he'd say softly. "Think about the Guardian. Think about the island." Suddenly, the forest around them began to shimmer. A vision unfolded before their eyes. They saw the Guardian of Sweetness, radiating warmth and joy, carefully tending to the island. She wasn't just creating sweets, she was demonstrating balance. She showed them how a little sweetness savored was far more rewarding than a mountain consumed greedily. She demonstrated how sharing brought immeasurable happiness, and how kindness could mend even the most broken things. The vision faded, leaving them with a profound understanding. She wasn't just making things sweet," Ben whispered, his voice filled with awe. "She was showing us how to be sweet." Finally, they reached the heart of the forest, a clearing bathed in golden light. In the center stood a small, unassuming chamber hidden within the largest waffle cone tree. The entrance was sealed with a shimmering, sugary barrier. "It's locked," Chloe stated, examining the barrier. Ben stepped forward, placing his hand on the sugary surface. He closed his eyes, focusing all his energy on the lessons they'd learned. He remembered the kindness they'd shown the gumdrops, the sharing of Maya's candies, and the self-control they'd exercised in the forest. With a soft click, the barrier dissolved, revealing the entrance to the chamber. Ben had found the key, not with strength or cleverness, but with the quiet power of a selfless heart. He looked at his friends, a shy smile gracing his lips. "Let's go," he said, his voice filled with newfound confidence. The chamber was surprisingly simple. No glittering treasures, no magical artifacts, just a single, ornate cage crafted from licorice vines, and within it, the Guardian of Sweetness. She wasn't as they'd imagined, not a queen in a candy crown, but a gentle woman with flour dusting her rosy cheeks and a sad smile on her lips. Her usually vibrant eyes were clouded with a dull gray. "Welcome, children," she said, her voice a faint whisper. "I've been waiting, though I feared no one would find their way through." "What happened?" Maya asked, her voice filled with concern. "Who did this to you?" The Guardian sighed. "A spell of selfishness. It feeds on greed, hoarding, impatience. All the things that imbalance the sweetness. It grew stronger as those qualities grew on the island, until it trapped me, severing my connection to the land." Leo, remembering his initial ravenous hunger, felt a pang of guilt. Can we break the spell?" "You already have," the Guardian said, a flicker of hope returning to her eyes. "The journey here, the challenges you faced, the lessons you learned, they've weakened the spell. But you must demonstrate the virtues that counter selfishness: kindness, sharing, and self-control together. A single act won't be enough, it requires a unified display." She gestured to 3 pedestals before the cage. "Place something upon each pedestal that represents these virtues. Something given, not taken." The children exchanged glances. This was it. They had to prove they'd truly changed. Sam, remembering his frustration with the Chocolate River Rapids, stepped forward. He carefully crafted a small boat from leftover waffle cone pieces, meticulously adding a miniature chocolate sail. "This is for kindness," he said, placing the boat on the first pedestal. "I built it for the little chocolate dragon we met. I should have tried to help him instead of rushing past." Chloe, swallowing her pride, hesitantly offered a shimmering, rainbow-colored lollipop, one of her prized possessions. "This is for sharing," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I always bragged about having the best things. But it's better to let others enjoy them too." She placed the lollipop on the second pedestal. Finally, Maya approached, her hand trembling as she held out the last of her rare candies, a tiny, perfectly formed sugar plum. It was the most beautiful candy in her collection, the one she'd been saving for a special occasion. "This is for self-control," she said, her voice firm despite her sadness. "I used to hoard everything, afraid of missing out. But true happiness isn't about having everything, it's about appreciating what you have and letting others share in the joy." With a deep breath, she placed the sugar plum on the final pedestal. Leo, feeling a warmth spread through his chest, stepped forward and placed his hand over theirs, joining them as a unit. As the last candy touched the pedestal, a wave of golden light erupted from the chamber. The licorice cage began to crumble, dissolving into harmless sugar dust. The guardian of sweetness gasped, her eyes regaining their vibrant sparkle. She rose, radiating warmth and joy. "You did it!" she exclaimed, her voice ringing with newfound strength. "You embraced the true sweetness." Outside, the island responded instantly. The melting slowed, then stopped. Chocolate rivers began to flow again, fuller and richer than before. Waffle cone trees straightened, their branches laden with delicious treats. Sprinkles danced in the air, restoring the island to its former glory. The guardian smiled at the children. "You've not only saved the island, but you've saved a part of yourselves. Remember the lessons you've learned here, and carry them with you always." A few days later, as the children prepared to leave Ice Cream Island, a familiar figure appeared, Pip, the gingerbread man. He stood on the dock, waving goodbye. "Thank you," Ben said, feeling a wave of gratitude. Pip winked. "The island will always be here for those who possess a sweet spirit. And remember," he added with a mischievous grin, "a little bit of indulgence is perfectly fine, as long as it's balanced with kindness, sharing, and a sprinkle of self-control." As the boat sailed away, the children looked back at the shimmering island, promising themselves to live by the lessons they'd learned. They returned home not just with sweet memories, but with hearts full of kindness, a willingness to share, and a newfound understanding of the power of self-control. They knew deep down that the greatest sweetness wasn't found in the treats they ate, but in the joy they shared with others.